This is a conversation with Seth Kniep. He's the co-founder of Just One Dime. It's a company that focuses on online education of entrepreneurs and also businesses that want to move online. I've worked with Seth for a number of years. We've traveled to China multiple times, and I not only regard him as a colleague, but also a friend. In the first part of this podcast, we focus on business. We focus on how he scaled his business, his greatest challenges, and how he effectively manages a team of people. In the second part of this podcast, we focus on more general topics. We get his opinion on the current happenings in the world and what he believes the future holds, as well as his views on life. I think there's a lot you can learn from him and enjoy this session. How can someone start making money online today?
So I put this together in 5 different words to make this really easy to remember, Dan, for everyone listening. And the first word I like to use is gather. And for some reason, it always makes me think of squirrels gathering for the wintertime when they're putting their acorns together. So by gather, I mean you need money. You need cash to get started. For any kind of operation where you're trying to make money or increase your cash flow, well, you got to start with money. And it doesn't mean you have to start with 30,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 like traditionally when you wanted to open a brick and mortar retail store business. You might start with just $100. Now, just to break down Gather a little bit, this is going to look different for every person based on their situation. So for some people, this might be, I'm going to go start driving for Lyft and Uber if they're available in my city and in my country. For someone else, it could be, well, we have a lot of stuff in our house that we don't need, and it's just sitting here. And once I have a really profitable business, I could buy 10,000 of these things. So why am I holding on to this? So they decide to sell it and they let it go, which is actually an application you can use to sell products, let it go or let go. Another way is, and this is not the most efficient way, is you could say, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to start with a small amount of money and I'm going to just double it until I reach a certain number, which is exactly what I did with a dime, doubling it 20 times into over 100,000, all the way up to $400 just for asking. So it's really not as hard as many people may think to just get money to get started. But that's the first of the 5 steps is you need some cash to make more cash. And it could even be working overtime at your job, taking on a second job, doing something on the side, maybe a gig, maybe monetizing a skill that you have.
How many times do you need to double a dime for it to reach $1 million?
I don't know. I'd have to get out my calculator. I can tell you this, if you double it 20 times, it's over $104,000 and some change in cents. And when I started, I got to $400. At some point, I had to make it an even number because it was too complicated to walk up to someone and say, hey, I got $14.39. Could you double it for me? It's a lot easier to say, I got $20. Could you double it to 40? In other words, could you give me 20? Why would I do that? Well, let me share with you my dream and my future. And when I got to 400, that's actually when I went to the next step, and that is trade. So by gather, I mean you start with money. You have to get a collection of money. And then trade is where you begin to use that money to buy and resell. A lot of people will call this arbitrage. I mean, just for fun this morning, Dan, before we started this interview, I did a very quick research online. These Ganesh sticks, they smell really good. It's like an incense, you can burn it. These are selling for $2 on the Walmart marketplace at the time of this recording. Yet they are selling for $15 on Amazon. Right there. I mean, it literally took me 5 minutes to find that. Another example, this really weird, almost creepy looking thing, it's called a face bank. These are selling very, very cheap at a lot of retail stores, brick and mortar stores, yet they're selling for $20, $30, sometimes $50 on Amazon and on the Walmart marketplace. The point is, if you buy something at a low cost, then sell it on a platform where the value is higher, where people will pay, 3 times what you purchased it for, you make money on the difference. And this is exactly what my wife and I did. We decided we were going to change our life. So first we gathered money and then we began to trade. In fact, sometimes, back in 2014, you had Facebook groups where you could sell stuff, but Facebook had not organized it into what is today called the Facebook Marketplace. Now it's a super organized, I mean, it's powerful. It's a super organized infrastructure that based on where you are localized, where you live, you can take stuff that you bought or just that you don't want anymore, and you can resell it. And it's amazing what like a rag and a can of WD-40 can do for you. Like we had a bike we didn't need. It had a bunch of spider eggs underneath the seat. So I got a rag, I cleaned it up, I dusted it, and I'm very honest about, the errors, the flaws in it. But to some people, they want that. I didn't need it. It was just sitting there. Had the tire switched out, so I had a good tire. Someone came along, bought it. That money then became something I could use to buy something else to resell. So first step, gather. Second step, trade, buy and resell, which is another word for arbitrage.
That's actually partly why I settled on FBA as well, is I kind of buy for one, sell for two. But in the FBA sense, it was more buy for one, sell for three, because you have to factor in, what the fees are associated with the platforms. But I love the simplicity in that. There's a lot of really complex business models these days and like just strange, kind of heavily promoted ways of making money, which often don't really work. A lot of like MLM type stuff. And that's what I loved about FBA or private label, wherever you sell, is it's literally that kind of buy for one, sell for two, or nowadays buy for one, sell for three. And then, so if you were to give me the top 3 business models for someone to start today, what would those 3 be?
So before I get to that, if you don't mind, I want to share the 3 other steps to this process because it will lead into that question. The next step is after I'm buying and reselling, then I want to build. And this ties in with what you said about Amazon FBA, Dan. Is we didn't just want, we as in myself and my wife, we didn't want to just keep going to Five and Below, buying and reselling on Amazon, buying and reselling on Craigslist, buying and reselling on Facebook. We wanted to actually build a brand. And the first product type I turned into a brand was an urn. And it started with one urn that you hang around your neck, and then it grew into more, until we were selling a lot of jewelry items. We had to start in the pet category because we were not approved to sell in jewelry until later. But because urns apply for your pet, because if your pet dies and you want to have them cremated and put those ashes in the urn, you can do that. And so we started selling those on eBay, started selling those on Amazon, and that's when we started to build a brand. And one important thing I think people need to understand is building a brand is a lot easier if I start with buy and resell, the trade one, before I get to the build, because I have cash flow coming in, but I can use that to test. So what we were selling in Amazon is arbitrage. We noticed some products would sell a lot faster, especially if their BSR was under 80,000, especially if it was under 20,000. It was huge. Like right now, beakers, a lot of beakers on Amazon, you can buy them and resell them. Their BSR is under 20,000 at the time of this recording. So once we found demand for those products, then we were able to say, okay, let's differentiate this product and make it unique. And instead of buying a bunch of one-offs in arbitrage, we would go to a supplier on DHgate, then later Alibaba, have them order, from them order like 2,000-3,000 of them, have those shipped to Amazon's fulfillment center. And now it's the same thing being sold over and over again, which reduces the amount of time we had to spend doing it, which gave us more time to launch more products, which is why we launched the Cash Cannon. We were the first person with the Cash Cannon on Amazon. We started launching clothing. Just a really quick, cool story, Dan. We go into Five and Below. We find these shirts with these really cool animal pictures on them. We're like, oh, I bet these are so well on Amazon. So we pull out the app. We notice the BSR is low. We can see what it's selling for on Amazon at the best offer because you have a lot of, piggybacking on that listing. So we buy like 10 or 12 and they sold like this. And we thought, wait a minute, why don't we create our own version of it, private label? So then we found our first manufacturer that does clothing. They took the picture of the animal and customized it. I had my daughter at the time do a graphic design mock-up, then they made it more professional, the supplier did. And that became another private label product, which turned into KK Fashions, which was its own clothing brand. Then we started doing organic lipstick and organic makeup. And my point is, one step leads to the next. So we started with gather, doubling the dime. Buying and reselling, that's the trade, arbitrage. Building, that's the private label brand. And then the next step is monetize. And this now answers the question you asked. Thank you for letting me, I wanted to bring that loop to close, is monetizing what you're doing. So I quickly discovered that I didn't just have physical products that sold well, but I had a skill. I had experience in how to build Amazon stores, and I started coaching people for free. My sisters, two of my sisters, I have 7 sisters, my neighbor Christina down the street, a guy I met at the grocery store, and I thought, I can't do this all day, so I started charging. And at first it was $25 an hour, then 50, then 100, then 500. It just kept going up because it was starting to take a lot of time. And that's when I decided, okay, I need help. I got Josiah, my son's help, and we built out a course. And so it went from gather to trade to build a brand to now monetize our knowledge on how to do that, because we had succeeded and also made a lot of mistakes along the way that we could warn others from. And then the 5th and the final is invest. And by investing, I mean investing in Amazon stores, having people build them for you, investing in real estate, investing in cryptocurrency. So to answer your question, those 5 are my favorite ways, but I think it needs to have an order, because if I'm starting with no money, I can't start investing. I have to first get the money. And then a low-cost way is to trade, arbitrage, then private label, then monetize all these skills I'm learning as I'm doing that. And now that I have a lot of money that Uncle Sam wants to take away from me, I invest it. And if I do it right, it reduces my tax liability literally by millions every year.
So in short, you would say buy and resell arbitrage, private label, like Amazon FBA, and then investing like real estate. And so Just One Dime at this point has carved out a significant space in the online education world. So if you had to sum it up, if you had to choose one thing only, what has been the biggest challenge for you in business?
Such a powerful question. People. I love people, and they can break your heart. And I think everyone comes to a point in life where if you believe in and trust in people and have an open heart, there are times where you will be hurt, you will be betrayed, you will be lied to. And I can choose either to close up and become callous to people, or I can consider that an opportunity to learn and to grow in wisdom. But at the same time, don't let that cause my heart to grow smaller. And I had to make that decision early on. People can be brutal, yet people are amazing. Like, they can destroy your life, it seems, and yet they can make your day amazing, depending on who you're working with. And specifically, Dan, finding the right people to work with. Some people I've trusted a lot, and it turned out that they had ulterior motives, and other people have turned out amazing and awesome to work with, you being one of them.
Thank you. So I think you're a lot better with people than myself. Like in working with people, I've seen you really just navigate certain situations extremely well with people, motivate people really well, delegate tasks really well, and like deal with really difficult situations in really smart social ways. Like, I think you are a very big people person, and there's a lot to learn from you there, as I'll get onto here. But before that, in one word, what has led to the most success in business for you?
Ownership.
When hiring people, these people that you are going to have issues with or who can help you, what's the number one quality that you look for in those people?
Ownership.
What's the toughest decision that you've had to make in business?
Firing people that I care about a lot. And it's ironic, sometimes if someone's not doing their job that they're being paid for, and they've had repeated warnings and opportunities to change and they still don't, and you still have to let them go, or having to end a relationship with a business partner because they're not doing their side of the deal, or they've been dishonest or caused hurt to trust, the worst thing I could do for them is to continue, because that would create enablement, and it's almost like rewarding bad behavior. So having to part ways or having to fire someone, let someone go, is actually oftentimes the most loving thing to do, but it still hurts, because there are some people in this world, they're much more ruthless than I am, and they're like, no problem, it's the facts, man, you're out of here, And as much as I have grown in being able to do that, that's hard for me, because I can't help, I'm relational, as you said. I develop close relationships with people. I keep them professional, but I still enjoy working with them. So it feels like an empty void to have to let someone go. but it's unfair to the other staff or business partners to hold on to one person who's not doing their job or who's been untrustworthy, because it compromises the integrity of the operation. And therefore, it's unfair to others who are doing a good job or who are being honest and honorable and taking ownership for mistakes they make. We all make mistakes. And that's why I said ownership, Dan, is in my mind, ownership isn't just, hey, if I make a mistake, I say, you know what, Dan, I blew it. Please forgive me. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. I don't want this to happen again. That's ownership. Another side to that is, let's say I worked for you and you said, Seth, I want you to build up a tea company. Well, if I'm an ownership person, I treat that task you gave me as if I own it myself. You could even be my employer, but I still must treat it like that. And if I do it with that perspective, Dan, it's not only going to bless you and help you, but now I'm not just doing a task. I'm thinking about it. I'm invested. I care about it. And I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to take ownership for those mistakes. And as a result, you're going to succeed and I'm going to succeed.
So you have chosen to, unlike a lot of other online educators in the space, you've chosen to actually have a physical office space, quite an extensive team relatively to other creators in the space in the same area. That obviously introduces a lot of new costs and expenses. What do you think about that decision? Would you change anything? And really, why did you make that decision when you could have been more profitable in a sense?
Absolutely. And truly, truly well said, because what a lot of people don't understand is buying a course. If someone buys a course, that's one thing. If someone buys a membership that includes one-to-one coaching, group coaching, researching and finding potential products for them, a community where they can ask questions, a whole system, a holistic program, that requires a lot more work. You can't just buy a course and you're good and do the course. If I don't like it, I don't like it. You literally have an entire system going. So I wouldn't change it for anything. The reason we did this, we as myself and Josiah, my business partner, is because our long-term goal is not make as much money as we possibly can. I do want to make money, absolutely, and I'll make as much money as I can along the way. Our long-term end goal is a network of investors who we turn into millionaires. In the next 5 years, I want a network of investors, people who pay us to build Amazon stores for them, who are millionaires. And then we do these huge meetups and we put together plans to fight for capitalism, to fight for freedom of speech, to fight for ownership, to defeat victim mindsets. Like, my mission is much more than just business. I think we can change the world. My mission, Dan, is to reach 1 billion people. And by reach, I mean influence, whether it's me directly or someone I'm influencing someone else. You're right, the costs are much greater. If I just wanted to make money, I would not have a coaching membership. There have been months where we didn't make money at all. We sold a lot of memberships, but we didn't make money because we were investing so much back into the training to make it better. But in my mind, if we can have the best training in the world, like truly the best, it won't be perfect, it never will be, that grows our credibility, that grows our opportunity to work with more people. That allows us to literally change the future of nations.
And back to managing people, you're extremely good at delegating with people, at motivating people, and dealing with issues with people as well, where almost to the point that I've noticed I lack a lot of patience. So what's the trick there for someone hiring perhaps their first employee, or who's planning to hire, or who has a team but is struggling to delegate, manage, motivate? What's the trick there?
Yeah. Make a list of everything that you do or want to do. It could be 100 things. Order them in priority from the things you enjoy the most to the least. Then break that into 2 groups. Group over here are the things that you love to do, and group over here are the things you don't like to do. And then for this group here, break it into 2 groups, things with high ROI, things with low ROI. Do the same thing do the same tactic with the group of things you love, things with high ROI, things with low ROI. Now you have 4 groups, okay? Group number 1, Things I love, high ROI. And by ROI, I don't just mean money. I mean, it grows my knowledge, it saves me time, it allows me to engage with people I love and to help people. Okay, that's the first group. For those things, I'm gonna schedule them into my life. In other words, you're building a system where it complements your strengths and it shores up your weaknesses. I don't believe in trying to focus on our weaknesses and get them stronger and stronger and stronger. I think it's a waste of time. So group one, things that I love to do, things with high ROI, I schedule them into my day. Group number two, things with high ROI, but I don't like doing, I delegate. So for example, I love coaching. I like motivating. And a huge piece of that comes from the grace that God has shown me in my life, in my faith. It makes me want to help people. But that doesn't mean everyone's going to be good at that. There's other people who are better than I am in many ways, but it's not their gift. It's not their strength. So they need to delegate those things that they don't enjoy, but still are important, like checking email. And then there's still two more groups. Then there's this group, Dan, where it is a low ROI, but I like doing. Those things, like watching a TV show, maybe reading a comic book or a book about pirates or something, or, drinking rum. There's no ROI on that. It's not good for me. So those things I do with self-discipline and intentionality. In other words, when I'm having downtime, when I'm relaxing, I might enjoy one shot of rum. See what I mean? They don't have an ROI, but I still enjoy them. And that's good because it allows me to relax and regenerate for the next day. And then the last group, this is the dangerous group, are the things with low ROI, and I hate doing them. Those are like the bad habits. Now, I don't smoke, but let's just use it as an example. Smoking, that's not good. Alcoholism is different than drinking. That's not good. Wasting time, just anything that's unhealthy. Unhealthy eating, that'd be a good one. So we do them because we're triggered somehow and it's an emotional outlet, but you don't actually like that. You don't want to be that person. Those things completely dispense with. That's what I would say to someone who's trying to figure out how to delegate their time running a business. They have to know themselves first and then build a structure that complements their strengths and delegates their weaknesses and focuses on things that have the biggest ROI for them and their staff and their company and their future.
Many people today want to be the CEO. I see this a lot. And you have made various efforts to remove yourself from that role. Why is that? And what should viewers who likely want to be the CEO consider? Great
question. It sounds awesome. It sounds sexy. It sounds powerful. I don't like being CEO because it doesn't leverage my strengths. I'm good at casting vision. I'm good at coaching people. I'm good at taking opportunities and leveraging them and monetizing them and bringing people together. But I am not good at running the operations of a company. This is why we just recently hired a president of Just One Dime. I will still be CEO, but CEO in a way that my tasks and my responsibilities play into my strengths. It's like, asking a round peg to be stuck into a square hole. It's weird, Dan. When you start a company, it's exciting, it's fun, it's awesome. But what happens is the company's needs change. And what I needed to start the company that I'm really strong at is not what the company needs to scale, which is why I've had to delegate a lot and hire a lot of people to help me. And that's why we're now having a president who will build the team, who will take care of hiring and firing and running operations so I can focus on Amazon stores, making sure our investors are getting what they're expecting and served well, creating content to continue to train our students, and also using all that to market what we do so the world can know who Just One Dime is.
And onto our more general section, but you live in Texas where there are less restrictions around the current pandemic. Where do you stand on that subject? Do you feel that government should be, locking things down? And what advice would you have for business owners in that regard?
James Rickard wrote a book called The New Great Depression. I highly recommend it. He's an economist. What I love about this guy is it's really hard to pigeonhole him with any political party, no matter how far right or left someone may want to pigeon them so they can make an argument, oh, you're just left or you're just right, so that's why you say that. That's what I love about this guy, Dan. The book is filled with facts. Ignorance abounds in America today. It absolutely abounds because people believe what mainstream media says. What the book talks about are facts. The only time a shutdown has ever been effective in the history of the world as we know it was during the Spanish flu in the early 1900s when there was a situation in military compound. No one could leave, no one could go in. Dan, it was literally an island and it worked. But to have shutdowns in order to not spread the virus is absolutely foolish and it ignores the facts. It doesn't work. Well, I can't go to the grocery store in Minneapolis. Well, I'll drive to the next city over and go there. What just happened? I just spread the virus at a different place. The one thing it does is it slows down the bell curve. It causes the spread to happen more slowly, but it does not stop it. Now, someone could argue, well, that's good, Seth, because that reduces the burden it puts on the infrastructure of hospitals having so many patients at the same time. And the truth is, and this is going to sound harsh, everyone at some point will get exposed to it. So the reality is lockdowns don't work unless it's 100% airtight. Therefore, by having lockdowns, it hurt the economy. People were still going to get it. They just got it later. It was delayed. It was more of a slow ramp up of people getting it. I agree that can help the infrastructure, the burden of so many people having to go to the hospital at the same time. But what about the tens of thousands of documented deaths of people who overdosed because they were stuck at home, they didn't have social outlets, people who died from abuse, people who didn't go to the hospital out of fear, therefore their own current medical condition, unrelated to any pandemic, caused them to die anyways, people who committed suicide. So at the end of the day, based on this book and based on research I have done, there's likely more deaths as a result of lockdowns, not fewer. And what it did is it created a lot of political leverage to try to have more control. So to answer your question directly, the government has no right to tell me that I have to stay in my house. That's why I live in Texas. Absolutely not. If we go back to America in its founding, people came here to have freedom from that. Can you imagine in the 17 or 1800s, after 1776, after America became a nation, people saying, stay in your house and don't get out? Like that, they would have said, you know, I won't say the word, but you know what they would have said. Like, you leave me alone. This is my land. I do with my land what I want. I am a free person. You don't tell me what to do with my body. And I think it's an insult to people, as if people don't have the common sense to use, you know, very safe, common sense practices like cleaning their hands, not sneezing on people, etc. If you treat people like children, they will act like children. And that results in a state power controlled economy, which hurts capitalism, which hurts freedom, which hurts innovation, which brings stress upon families, and is not good for anyone. So I like Texas.
I like Texas. So what do you think about cryptocurrency? I know you're not an expert on this topic, but what do you think about the emergence of cryptocurrency, or at least its growth becoming more known, and also what it represents?
Absolutely. I think it represents something amazing. It's so weird, Dan. Right now we're going in this huge shift in politics and the economy of the world, where there's a lot of people pushing for socialism, but then you have cryptocurrency. In my mind, cryptocurrency and socialism and its steps towards communism, by the way, Peru is on its way, according to some who live there, to communism right now. As soon as it happens, a lot of people's homes will be taken from them by force because the government says we have that right. Like, it's unbelievable. And the reason I'm bringing up communism here is I think it's relevant. Cryptocurrency represents the decentralized application of currency in the world like we never knew it. Kind of like the internet. The internet all of a sudden gave people access, the opportunity to start selling in Amazon, to start learning things that, I mean, you can learn more in one day on the internet than someone would learn in their lifetime who lived in the 1800s. It's unbelievable. So I think it has decentralized a lot of finance control. And I know the argument against that is, yeah, well, Seth, then there's going to be a lot of scams. Yes, that's true. But we're humans. We're responsible to protect ourselves from those and be smart. Yeah, but Seth, if you don't have a bunch of, limitations, then it's going to be abused. That is true. But with that also comes the freedom to do the right thing, because what goes around comes around. So in theory, in principle, the conceptual, philosophical side of it, I love it, Dan, because it represents who we are as humans, that we have freedom to try new things and do different things, and the government doesn't get to control everything. On the other hand, as far as where it's headed, I believe it will continue to be like this, like a roller coaster at Disneyland, and I'm okay with that. I'm an investor in cryptocurrency, not because I'm trying to get rich even in 3 years. I have money in cryptocurrency, and I'm holding, and I'm waiting, and I want to see what it does. And when I have time to deep dive into this, I'll be talking to you and asking you for some tips.
Awesome. And you are vegan. So why did you go vegan? Like what was, what sparked you to make that change, and what are the benefits and not the stated benefits, but what are the benefits that you have felt?
Absolutely. More energy, fewer blackheads and pimples, stronger sex drive. I relax better than I used to. Sometimes when I had a lot of meat, I would feel sated after, because the intestines in a human are like over 20 feet long. And it's been proven that if meat stays going through intestines for that long, not to gross anyone out, it becomes not only toxic, but it begins to deteriorate and develop unhealthy bacteria. Whereas if you look at the intestines of a carnivore, like a cat or a dog, they have short intestines. The meat goes through them very quickly, so it doesn't have that opportunity to churn into something dangerous. Well, a lot of people have argued and used science to prove this in studies that when you have vegetables and plant-based foods going through your body, your energy is so much greater. And so I wouldn't go back. I mean, when we went vegan, Dan, we did it as a family. We just went to the pantry and the fridge and we threw out everything that was animal-based. And, no offense to people who love animals. I love animals. I don't believe in animal abuse at all. I didn't do it because I'm against killing and eating. I mean, God told Noah, kill and eat. I think if it's done humanely, there's nothing wrong with being a hunter. I'm all for that. I did it for my health. And also, a side benefit is the amount of water and work that is wasted when you look at agriculture when it comes to herding animals versus growing plants. It's like in the billions, so much more money. It costs so much water just for a single pound of hamburger meat compared to a bowl of tofu or beans. Although the actual grams of protein may be less, the body processes it more efficiently, the protein in it, which is another reason. I could go on, man, but those are the health reasons is the main reason.
And you tend to mix business and fun. So a lot of people, they do business and then they do fun, kind of almost like the work week, the weekend. You tend to mix the two, but constantly.
I love how you say that, but constantly.
Yeah, there's one's always there. What I want to hear from you is your thoughts on this, because you have a lot of people at home currently, and everyone talks about having a balanced life, balancing this and that. And so what advice particularly would you give for someone who wants to start a business and be successful? What should their level of balance be? And included there is when, the other people around them begin telling them they need to balance or not work so hard, or whatever the case might be. Just what are your thoughts on balance today for someone who wants to be successful in your experience?
Such an excellent question. I no longer believe in trying to be balanced in the way most people mean it. For the longest time, I grew up thinking you have to make sure you have a balance. In other words, work 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and then make sure you relax, and then make sure you have a good sleep. And there's good elements in that. The problem is being an entrepreneur does not afford that kind of balance. And I'm actually happier. I'm more content. My marriage is more vibrant. I enjoy life and people more. When instead of focusing on balance, I'm focused on adventure. Like I would ask anyone this question, would you rather go to your grave having lived the perfect balanced life, or lived for adventure, rested when you needed to, enjoyed going to a new city? Why we made a commitment, Dan, anytime my wife and I go to a city for more than a week, we won't go there unless we invest in real estate when we're there. Do you know how fun that makes it? Because when we're there, we get to work on Amazon, we get to work on Just One Dime. We also get to go to the beach, we get to go to dinner, we get to hang out with people, we get to partner with other investors, partner with business partners, and look at real estate properties and invest. It's mixed. I love that. My best illustration of this is if you buy a property that is in a very high demand, short-term rental market, such as Miami, that property makes you money while you're at home doing your life. But then you can block off a week and go there with your loved ones and enjoy vacation. Instead of spending money, you just stop making money on the property. And when you come back, you're making money again. That, I think, is a great example of it's not balance that I fight for anymore. It's adventure. It's living my life the best that I can. Yes, we need downtime. Yes, we need rest. I'm not against that. But I'm no longer using society to tell me what my balance needs to be, because number one, it's none of their business. And number two, every human is different. For me, I'll just give you an example. Before I go to sleep every night, Dan, I want to show you really quick. Every single night, right here, Duolingo, every night before I go to sleep, I work on my Spanish. So far, I'm on a 10-day streak, baby. For some people, that's not balance. For me, it's fun. It's work, but it's great because I'm going to sleep thinking about Spanish so I can learn to communicate better with people like David Lopez over Just One Espanol or Alan Urizar. You see what I mean? For me, it's the mix that I love. And for anyone who's wondering, well, how do I do that? First, you have to know you, what's good for you. And second, don't let your friends and family define what's healthy for you. You don't want to live your whole life trying to please them. That's a horrible way to live. You have to find out what's good for you and then act on it.
Do you believe in fate? Is the plan laid out already, or do our actions actually create our future?
I do not believe in fate, but I want to say that with qualification. So I believe that our actions have results. I have freedom to choose between this path and this path. I also believe in God. I also believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that he is sovereign over all things. And this is where people, they get really twisted. They're like, Seth, that doesn't make sense. How can God be in control of all things, but you have free will? Well, I believe in both. I believe there's a tension there where he is my father. He loves me and he's always there for me. And there's no way, Dan, I would be here today were it not for his grace. He has given me free will. He told Adam and Eve, have any fruit you want, just don't pick from that tree. And the one tree he says don't pick from, they have to go pick from. It's like human nature at its classic best. There is free will. From the very beginning, there's been free will. But I also believe he is in control. In other words, nothing's going to happen that's outside of him saying, no, this isn't going to, he can veto something anytime he wants. And someone will argue, well, that means that he's responsible for all evil in the world. And my argument to that would be, how do you define evil without an absolute standard from an absolute God? Not trying to go on a huge religion trail here, but I can't answer the question without sharing my faith because it's so integrated. So to answer your question, no, I do not believe in fate the way most people believe. I do believe in a God who loves us and is in control of all things, who gives us free will and blesses our actions when we take a courageous action to move forward, and shows grace and forgiveness when we do something stupid. And I've done lots of those in my life, and I'm sure I have a few more to do.
And so the last question is related or completely unrelated to the rest of what we've discussed. And that is, we get so busy with business, with strategies, with balancing things in whichever way we enjoy and works for us. But at the very end of the day, what is our purpose?
To love God and to love people. I believe that is our purpose. I think if I take care of my vertical relationship and my horizontal relationships, everything else falls into place. And for anyone listening, I don't want you to feel like, hey, well, if I don't believe what you believe, then I'm out to lunch. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just simply speaking from my heart, what I believe to be true and what has worked for me is it goes back to those two things, like my relationship with my Father in heaven and my relationship with other people like you and others. How do I say this without sounding like a prick? I wouldn't be able to have the compassion towards people and the desire to see them succeed if God didn't have his compassion towards me. So it always comes from something deeper. And I know for some people, they'll call that the universe. They'll call that, a different God of a different religion. And I'm not here to debate that. I'm just saying, I believe that is the purpose. If I can find things I do that honor my Creator, that create freedom for me and my family and help other people and make money all in one batch, that is a way to win in life. I cannot imagine a better way to live than that.
Excellent. Well, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the channel, for answering these questions. I know some of them were quite personal, but I wanted to mix it up, and I want to have each guest answer those questions from their perspective. I think you shared some incredible knowledge, especially in areas of, how to manage your business or how to actually structure. This is something I've noticed with you, is you often create a very good structure for a problem. And you are quite actually analytical, which is strange for a people person, but you actually break down a structure. And I think you shared a lot of those, which the viewers will find valuable. But again, thank you so much for coming on the channel. And is there any last words of wisdom that you would give the viewers?
Yes, I would say this. No matter where you are in life, please just do two things. Show yourself grace for the mistakes you've made and take the next step to reaching your goals. Move to action. That is so, so key. If you move to action, things are so much easier.
And if anyone watching does want to hear more from Seth, he shares some incredible strategies on his own YouTube channel. It's not the Just One Dime channel. It's Seth Kniep, Kniep. I'm going to link that below in the description and pinned comment as well if you do want to check that out. But definitely go follow along there. He shares a lot of stuff around business, even Amazon FBA, reselling, but also in the personal sense. And he also has some podcast guests of his own. So I'm sure you're going to find that really valuable. But again, thank you so much, Seth. And I hope the viewers find this one valuable.